Ferrucci leading the field to green. Let's go from Portland, and what a run for Will Power coming down into turn one.
It was an early jump from Ferrucci. That gave Power the draft, but he's trying to hold it on the outside, side by side, and one Power is going to take it around the outside of two.
I thought Ferrucci touched right front to left rear of Will Power. It looks like he comes away unscathed, but Will Power being bold and decisive into the first corner.
That yellow and red car is the championship leader, Alex Palou in third. The green and black, Romain Grosjean, who has not won in more than a decade. He is in play today.
He's made a great start, up from sixth on the grid to fourth. And we see some moves now. That's on to Dixon into turn 7. Is that Kirkwood? We've seen this before, Townsend. Drivers getting pushed wide on the exit there. Dixon falling like a rock.
Massive penalty.
Contact.
This will be a big hit.
Dixon hard into the wall. One of the championship contenders is out and done.
We've seen this move a lot in the last year. Passes on the inside of 7, push a car wide. Everyone's trying to get around. It's 3 wide there. That's at the 30.
Pietro Fittipaldi.
Headed back towards the chicane, this time single file.
How aggressive is Romain Grosjean with the championship leader, but further back, Newgarden getting defensive with Kirkwood there.
Kirkwood trying to make moves after that engine penalty knocked him down a bunch of spots in qualifying. Both of those drivers on those softer red sidewalled Firestones.
And Pietro Fittipaldi is getting an avoidable contact penalty, so he will have to give up his great position, 13th, and do the drive-through. And David Malukas is the biggest mover so far, and there's the championship leader. He has moved up to second. Palou scores more points. Ferrucci drops to third.
Oh, yeah. Contact down in turn 1, seemingly, at least a car backwards, as Pietro Fittipaldi and Connor Daly get together.
So Fittipaldi comes to the inside looking for the overtake. Is he there enough?
Pietro was supposed to make a hard left.
No, it's right front to left rear, fully locked up.
Palou is going to take a look around the outside. Maybe try to do the switch back here. Traffic could impact things. Palou on the charge. Pressure coming. Championship contenders and the leader right there in that yellow car trying to move to the lead of this race.
Both drivers on the push to pass, but as Palou pulls out, Power stays in line with the 30, so he's able to get that draft. Palou can't get a run as the 30 pulls off to serve another drive-through penalty for avoidable contact, but race on at the front.
That was not a great stop, Dylan. 9.2 seconds for Alex Palou as Power comes down the front straight.
Headed down towards the chicane, and Power is going to maintain the advantage.
Easily gets it done. I think you called it there, Townsend. That stop a little bit slow, and even with the seeming advantage of doing the overcut there, staying out that lap longer, was not enough for Palou.
Toby Sowery, the rookie, trying to go around the outside.
This is not what Kirkwood needs. He wants that fresh air, that clean racetrack that he can see in front of him. If Sowery gets around, it's going to kill that, but it's going to be a big dive into 7. Who's going to blink?
Remember what he did to Scott Dixon earlier in the race. Sowery backs off, tries to do the cross-up. Kirkwood's going to defend aggressively, I think, right here.
He's giving the inside to the 51. There's a lot of marbles off track already, but he's got the preferred line. It might be advantage Toby into the chicane. Grosjean.
As Romain Grosjean is stalled.
What?
And backwards. Did he get help?
Brutal result after a great run going. These hybrid systems should technically allow you to restart, and that was... Oh, he had it running.
He got that left rear kicker as he is able to restart his car and comes right in front of Christian Rasmussen.
That was lazy. That was foolish to not look in your mirror and know what was coming when you're turning. He just did it again.
Just about got Toby Sowery there, I think.
Got the flat. He didn't get hit. He drove straight into the 20. That's the wrong way of wording that one. And oh no.
He went 2 years without a win. Now in 2 months, Will Power has won 3 times. Power wins at Portland to keep his championship hopes alive.
Up next, it's the Hy-Vee Milwaukee Mile 250 Race 1, Saturday, August 31st. Watch it at 6 p.m. on Peacock.
And with that Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derik Vance, and I will be bringing in the other co-host of the show here shortly. But that was last year's Bit Nile Grand Prix of Portland, and that is what we're going to be previewing and discussing coming up this weekend. So obviously this show this evening, we're going to be previewing, analyzing, and discussing what we're going to see this weekend at Portland International Raceway. Also, too, no travel issues whatsoever, so we should be being joined later this evening, the bottom half of the hour, by INDYNXT Series by Firestone, driver of the 99 Indy Force, with Abel Motorsports Myles Rowe. So definitely looking forward to having a chat with him. Also, we'll get to our betting segment with Mike. And then we'll give you a first look at what the weather is going to look like this weekend in Portland with our official weatherman of the Push to Pass podcast. And then we'll go over news and notes, things that have taken place between last week and this week that we're going to catch you up on before we get on out of here. But before we do any of that, let me bring in the other co-host here of the Push to Pass podcast. Michael joins us as always this evening. Michael, how's it going over there in your neck of the woods?
Everything is going well over here. Just ready to talk about this race and ready to see IndyCars back on track this weekend in Portland.
Absolutely. We've had a week off to catch our bearings and to get ready for this stretch run, as we have just 3 races left to go, if you can believe it or not, in this 2025 season. Obviously, we have the Bit Nile Grand Prix of Portland this weekend, and then in 2 weeks we'll go to the Milwaukee Mile there at the State Fairgrounds, and then to cap the 2025 season, we will be in Nashville for that race as well. And I can announce, finalized our plans, all 3 of us, to attend that Nashville race. So definitely looking forward to that. But we'll talk more about that as those days get closer. But we do need to, again, as I mentioned, discuss, talk about, and analyze what we are going to or think what we're going to see this weekend at the Portland International Raceway, and it is the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland. Michael, before we get into the map, what the track looks like, facts, schedule, we'll take a hot lap around there, and then we'll take a look at some of the past winners of this race. Anything that sticks out to you that you want to talk about when it comes to the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland and the Portland International Raceway itself?
Yeah, honestly, this is a great market for the IndyCar series and for everyone in the Northwest. There's not a lot of racing out that way as far as major sporting events. I know NASCAR, their second tier series goes there. But it's a really good area and a good market for the IndyCar series to be in. And Portland, the track itself, like we've seen in the intro video, is pretty wide. So there is a little bit of room for give and take, but not a lot, as you've seen with the contact with Dixon in the pre-video or pre-intro video there. So it's going to be an interesting race and exciting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at what you were just talking about, the track dimensions and such. Let me make this full screen for everyone. There we go. There is the track map layout of the Portland International Raceway. Let me dig up some of the facts for this track here. I mentioned Portland International Raceway opened in 1961 on the former location of Vanport, Oregon, which was destroyed by a Memorial Day flood in 1948. The 11-turn, 1.96-mile natural road course is relatively flat, but does contain several spots, as Michael touched on, for passing opportunities including a quick chicane at the end of the front stretch, a hard-braking right-hand turn in turn 7, which leads into a sweeping backstretch with 3-turn complex leading back onto the front stretch. Allenser Jr. won the first NTT IndyCar Series race in Portland in 1984. Also in 1997, the race set now current all-time record for the closest 2-car and closest 3-car finish in NTT IndyCar racing history on a road course. Mark Bundle beat second place Gilles de Ferran by 0.27 of a second and beat third place Raul Baselli by 0.055 of a second in a 3-wide finish. So a little bit of track history, a little bit of the layout of the land, so to say, there at the Portland International Raceway. Switching gears, moving to what the schedule is going to look like for the weekend. We're going to get things kicked off, obviously, right there, Friday, August 8th at 5:30 p.m. Keep in mind, these are all Eastern Standard Time, so set your clocks accordingly. 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, first practice. Saturday, right there as the clock strikes noon on the Eastern Time Zone, we're going to have practice number 2. And then a few hours later, we're going to get qualifying kicked off at around 2:30, and then there will be a final practice Saturday evening, at least in the Eastern Time Zone, at 8:30 p.m. And then Sunday, the race isn't going to get started. Green flag's not going to drop in until 3 p.m. So again, check your clocks accordingly. Michael, through the first two things, not only the track, map, history, and facts, but schedule. Anything jump out at you, through this, first 15 minutes?
No, just I guess the one thing that does stand out is the time zone difference, obviously being 3 hours, but that 8:30 practice session at night is kind of going to be interesting to see how things turn out there. Being so late out in Portland, and then the race being a little earlier than that, so it'll be interesting to see what the teams can learn in that practice session.
Definitely, if practice has taught us one thing, not only do with the betting aspect of the sport, but that Saturday evening practice that's at 8:30 Eastern, so I think that's 5:30 Pacific if I have my time zones correctly. Definitely going to be an interesting watch there, that final practice session going into the race on Sunday. Taking a look at the past winners, and obviously there isn't a whole lot here to discuss as well. You see 2024 Will Power, 2023 Alex Palou, 2022 Scott McLaughlin, and then you also see again Alex Palou in 2021 and Will Power again scoring a victory in 2019. So, Michael, not a lot of previous winners in this race, so not a lot of data to go by, especially in the betting world. Obviously, we'll touch on that later in the show. But obviously, the past winners, Michael, is a who's who of winners on the NTT IndyCar Series.
Yeah, when you look at, Will Power and Alex Palou, both pretty much veterans in the series at this point, and the way Palou's been this year, I would probably put some money on him. Like you said, we'll talk betting here in a little bit, but same with Will Power, although their season has been terrible, to say the least. And then obviously Scott McLaughlin, he's won there in the past, so it'll be interesting to see if Penske can turn the corner this weekend and maybe get at least a car on the podium, if not in winner's circle.
Yeah, and great segue, Michael. Speaking of Scott McLaughlin, let's ride on board with him as he takes a hot lap around the Portland International Raceway.
Okay, dude. Good job. We're pole. Yeah, I didn't know that. Woo! Well, Joseph was praying with us. He got me. Got me. No, he was just praying with you, so I couldn't say anything until he got about a 9. Great job. Yeah, good job. Let's go. 33s, baby. Nice lap, my man. Nice lap.
And that was a hot lap courtesy of Scott McLaughlin around the Portland International Raceway. And that is what all of the drivers are going to be going around this on Sunday. Obviously, like I said, it is a 216.04 mile race or 110 laps. So definitely a lot of things are up for grabs this weekend. Obviously, you know, Michael always touches on how important those leader circle points are, but you know, the description, if you check out in the video on YouTube or wherever you look at it, Michael, it says, you know, is Pato O'Ward, and I forget how I wrote that, but is Pato O'Ward, is the door going to be slammed on him and his championship hopes this weekend by Alex Palou, or do you think, Michael, in your own opinion, in your own thoughts here, is Palou going to do enough and hold off, or excuse me, is O'Ward going to be able to do enough and hold off Palou and maybe make this championship points race a little more interesting than what we think it's going to be?
Unfortunately, I think this season is pretty much wrapped up. I seen earlier, I was on Twitter or X, whatever we call that platform now, but Tony Donahue, he posted something about, Palou wins, and then there's, Fox announces, playoff format for next year, which I kind of thought was comical because, this season has been pretty much all Palou this year. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes about this race, just for the simple fact that it's pretty much in Palou's hand. I mean, he doesn't need a whole lot he needs 48 points, I think the number is, to clinch the championship, which if he finishes second and leads a lap, he gets that accomplished, and then he would just need to start Milwaukee and Nashville. So it'll be interesting to see how they play these next 3 weeks. But definitely, we talked about if he can clinch this week, all bets are off for Milwaukee and Nashville. He can just focus on the win only. There's no point situation. So, Palou, I think is going to be the champion. I mean, if he doesn't, would it? Here's a question for you. If for some reason something happens these next 3 weeks and Alex Palou loses the championship, what would that say about his season? Would it still be a great season if he didn't win the championship?
In my opinion, and obviously, you know how competitive I am, but I want to ask you a question, and I can actually equate this to the Indianapolis 500, Michael. Who remembers who the runner-up was in the 2021 Indianapolis 500?
Yeah, no one. Unless you're a fan of that driver, no one.
Correct. So is Alex Palou, obviously with again, we're hypothetically saying here, if Alex Palou was to blow the points championship in the last 3 races, and Pato O'Ward was to somehow pull off a miracle upon miracles and denies Alex Palou a 3rd straight Astro Cup, do you really think that as historic of a season that Alex Palou has, let's put that on the table. It has been historic. I in my time, and again, I've only been doing this, covering the NTT IndyCar series for just 3 years now. I have never seen, and there may be more dominant seasons. And again, I've only covered this for 3 years now, but this has been, in my eyes, the most dominant single season in NTT IndyCar history. You have one guy that out of Michael, 17 races, I think that's what the schedule is, potentially has a chance to win, to get double digits, 10 wins out of 17 races. Actually, I take that back. He has a chance, if he was to sweep, 11 wins in 17 races. That's historic, and that would obviously set a new single season win record on the NTT IndyCar series. But if Alex Palou somehow craps the bed, for you kids out there listening, if he craps the bed and Pato O'Ward somehow, some way finds a miracle to pull off this championship, to take the Astro Cup out of the grasp of Alex Palou, because that's what it's within, then I think from a competitive point of view, Alex Palou would have to see this season as disappointing. If he doesn't win any more races and finishes with 8 and chokes the championship point championship away, and Pato O'Ward figures out a way to do it, then again, my opinion, and I can't wait to hear yours, but I think Alex Palou sees the season as a complete failure.
Well, I see where you're coming from with that, with the championship and everything. But when I look at it, when you talk to people, you brought it up, who finished second in the Indy 500. Well, and here's kind of a problem with the IndyCar series is everyone remembers who won the Indy 500, but does everyone remember who won the championship that year? And I would have to say probably not. And that's, I think, the big issue that IndyCar currently has is they have one race that outshines the entire rest of their season. And while I love the Indy 500 and I love the Speedway and everything, but we've got to make it to where every race matters more. And that's why, and I've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of, people saying, no, it's not going to happen. But I mean, it does bring excitement, and that's a playoff system. It brings excitement. It makes every race that much more important. You see it. If you're a NASCAR fan and you watch the NASCAR Cup Series, you see it week in and week out. That's what they're talking about. Who's the playoff bubble? Watch this driver. It brings a lot more storylines, and it brings a lot more attention to every single race. And I'm not saying that I want a playoff system in IndyCar, because I really don't. I think it kind of waters down the championship, and I could go into a whole episode about that, and what's wrong with the playoff system and things like that. But what I'm saying is how do you make the entirety of the IndyCar season matter more than just the Indy 500? Because I feel that the Indy 500 overshadows everything else in the IndyCar series.
All right, let me ask this. I know we want to get to our sponsors here before Myles Rowe joins us, but you think about okay, first off, Michael, do you consider, and take your bias out of this, but do you consider IndyCar to be a major sports league or association?
That's a tough question, because the viewership isn't there. The attendance is there. See, that's the crazy thing, is that the at-track attendance is really well at just about every race. Take Iowa out from this year. And yet again, that's a whole episode we could talk about, and we did talk about it at the time. But the at-track attendance for about every race this year has been incredible. The TV numbers haven't been there. So how are you looking at it? Are you looking at it from a television side of things? Maybe not. But when you look at the entirety of the sport, from the grassroots drivers, and I'm so glad that we have a driver on tonight, because I have so many questions. But when you look at how these guys start and come up through, and the diversity of the series and things like that, it's definitely, it has to be up there. It's just, how do we get it more publicized? And I think that is going to be a big thing with Fox. How are they going to make this, series as competitive on the TV side of things with, NASCAR and Formula One?
Well, I asked my previous question to ask this. Can you name me another professional sports league that doesn't have a playoff?
No, and that's where we were with. I guess the only other one would be Formula One. That doesn't. But see, here's the question. I have a question for you, because the NFL and all these other sporting events, the NHL, NBA, they play 1v1. So so are you going to say, okay, this weekend is the championship and it's, between driver A and driver B, the other 25 cars can't compete? That's where, because there's too many variables in racing that when you come down. So if you take NASCAR system, where you have your 4 drivers, 1 race. Well, all you have to do is be the first driver out of those 4 to win. And we've seen the flaw in that last year. And, you look at Joey Logano in his championship last year for Team Penske. You look at that and you say, okay, this guy averaged a 15th place finish throughout the entire season, but he's your champion. I think back to, the 8-win seasons with Alex Palou this year. If there was a playoff system and somehow we get to Nashville and it's not a good race for him, and Pato finishes ahead of him and wins a championship, and let's say, for instance, Pato only had, 1 win this year, and his average was like, 8th place, but he hit, and it's kind of accurate. He's hit on, a good stretch of the season here towards the end. Then you have a driver who hasn't been great all year. He's been consistently in the top 10, but he's not been the guy winning 8-9 races a season. And he comes and wins a championship. That's why it's just too many variables. You have engine failures. You have mechanical issues. Yes, in NFL, you have maybe a quarterback who gets injured or things like that, but it's the next guy up. If an engine blows in a race car, that car's done for the day. So there's too many variables with racing. And that's why you can't water down the sample size by saying, hey, we have 10 drivers going for a championship and they have 3 races and we're going to accumulate points that way. Well, that takes away from it things. It waters it down. And winning should be important. Winning should be the ultimate prize in every sport. And it's, like I said, it's so different because, you look at the stick and ball sports and yes, it's a 1v1 situation where it's one team versus another. It's not, for instance, let's say, the Indianapolis Colts versus the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden we decide that, halfway through the game after, the halftime show, we're going to add, a third team out on the field, and they may or may not cost, one team the win. That's the situation where they don't have that in, the stick and ball sports. So when we start watering down, and I'm not trying to discredit Joey Logano or any of the NASCAR champions, because there's definitely, they were deserving because they played the format right. But I think back to, if we're, talking a playoff system and how flawed it is, you had two drivers in NASCAR in 2020, Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, both had 9 wins, and neither one of them won the championship. So you tell me how that works out.
I think it's safe to say, as we're waiting for Myles Rowe to join us, I think it's safe to say there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons to weigh at this. But if Fox wants to grow this sport, and obviously with their acquisition of a third of Penske Entertainment last week, that ought to tell everybody exactly what Fox wants to do. If Fox has a vision of growing the NTT IndyCar series, and I think Tony Donahue, I put the tweet up earlier, and you made mention to it. I think he's absolutely spot on. I think that's what's going to happen within the next couple years. That's how Fox is going to grow this sport. Yeah, it's going to stink that, again, as you said, somebody like an Alex Palou wins 8 races in one season and maybe gets penalized for it. But I would not surprise me to see that happen in the distant future. Michael, let's pick up on that conversation a little bit later because, as I mentioned, our guest is joining us. Happy to have on the Push to Pass podcast, making his debut, INDYNXT Series by Firestone driver of the number 99 Indy Force with Abel Motorsports, Myles Rowe. Myles, first and foremost, before we get into this, huge thank you for being able to take some time out of your busy schedule. I know it's been a couple weeks in the making, but thank you for being able to cut a little bit of time out for us here. A lot to discuss and a lot to talk about as INDYNXT by Firestone is finishing up your 2025 season.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Derik and Michael. As you said, the season's coming to a close now. We have 3 more races left. So we've had a pretty good season. We're in 4th in the championship right now. We think we can get into those top 3 by the end, especially with some oval races in Portland International Raceway, which are very good tracks for Abel Motorsports and Force Indy. So very excited. The team's very excited. We came off with I think we were the 4th best driver to collect points off of a double race weekend in Laguna for the last couple races. So we're looking to improve that a little bit through these last couple races. But yeah, everything's been pretty stellar coming off of a recent win in Iowa, which was great for the team and everything. Just happy to be here for sure.
We're definitely going to discuss the historic milestone that you set by winning at Iowa. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about what drove you into racing and what made you decide that IndyCar was going to be the way that you were going to make your career?
Yeah, so growing up, the actual first cars I saw were Formula One cars. I think this is in about 2006 or so when Alonso was with Renault. And so immediately my first inclination to what I wanted to do motorsports-wise was open wheel racing. And so growing up in Georgia in the United States, basically the thing you know about is the Indy 500. And so I knew that IndyCar was going to be the way for me. It has the most diverse drivers on the planet. Not only do we race on road courses and street courses, but we also are professional oval racers as well, which is another kind of skill level that Formula One doesn't involve. And so I knew that was the way to go. So it was about, I knew just getting from go-karts to basically open wheel race cars. So in order to get started, I started indoor go-karting when I was about 12 years old. So this is a big jump. It's about from 2006 to 2012. My age follows the year, but that was essentially what I did to kind of start my path forward.
And Myles, what a path that it has led you to so far. Obviously, going through the ranks, and now you're just one rung of the ladder away from a NTT IndyCar Series ride. And I know, and we'll talk about your win at Iowa, but I know for the last couple years there's been the chatter has gotten louder about you finding that ride in the NTT IndyCar Series. And next year may be the year that you break through there. But you as a young driver, with all that chatter, and I know you hear it, how tough is it for you to block it out and focus on what you need to do in the race car week in and week out?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something you make sure it doesn't affect your performance, so to speak. I like to think it doesn't affect me too much in the car. The main thing is to just kind of always believe and be focused on the very next race. Really, no matter what is happening, whether you have, a few years confirmed or whether you have no idea whether your next race is going to happen, you still got to focus on performing your best in that next race, because you're only as good as your last race, as they say. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. So the pressure that comes from outside sources in the media, for instance, they don't have as much of an impact on me as some might think. But you definitely have to put a conscious thought naturally to making sure that noise essentially doesn't get to you and affect your performance, as I said. But overall, it's a balancing act. But it's just, I think it helps that I expect more from what I think and have seen from outside sources in the media, for sure.
Definitely a great answer, and it shows week in and week out how focused that you are behind that number 99 Indy Force machine for Abel Motorsports. But now, Myles, take me back to how it felt that Iowa race finally picking up that first victory, that elusive first victory. What was that feeling like? Walk us through that.
Yeah, that was a really good day. That weekend that was basically a back-to-back weekend where we were racing in Ohio the weekend before, and then we had to turn the trucks around immediately to make it to Iowa for that same week. So anything that went wrong or that we need to fix could only get fixed basically Tuesday and Wednesday before the races. And we had a fair bit of damage under the floor of our car after Ohio. So the team spent a lot of long hours and extra hours trying to fix the car and make sure it was good, and then traveling to Iowa, a lot more than we have at any other part of the season. So they were already kind of tired and kind of beat up. So I just remember being really focused. There was a couple new things. So we only had one practice session in Iowa, and we didn't even get to qualify. That was I think the weekend where we had the littlest amount of run time compared to every other weekend we've had this year. And so I just remember the necessity to kind of hit the ball rolling when we put the car on the circuit, and with the tornado warning and everything and qualifying not being run, it was a very interesting one. But the fact that we were able to do what we did to the car and come out the box like that, and show our performance and show our speed was super crucial. One, it was really rewarding for the team, for my family, everybody that supported me. And two, it was just what we knew should be developing throughout the whole season. I know all of us wanted it a bit earlier, but it's a tough series and not that many people win in it. So we were grateful when our time came, and the fact that we could do it in that way like we did, with kind of basically rebuilding the car and such, gives us and gave us a lot of confidence for the future, for these next couple races at the end of this year.
Myles, after that Iowa victory, did it ever occur to you, or maybe a couple days later, that winning that race solidified you in your mind, saying that you can do this, and it's you didn't get here, you didn't get to the INDYNXT Series by Firestone by happenstance. It's the fact that you do have the skill to compete potentially in the next year or two, depending on how luck falls your way at the highest level.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge for the Force Indy program. It's huge for me, because you got to win in these series for the team owners to to really feel like that you should be a part of the IndyCar League, of the show, the big show. And so not having a win for a while in IndyNXT definitely, I'm sure, raised a few concerns, especially given my prior history of success in USF Pro 2000, USF 2000 with a certain amount of victories. So especially doing it on an oval too, which some people find it more difficult in their careers to do. That was huge. It was very important. Of course, I always knew I had it in me. When I did that, it was no surprise to me at all. But I know, just in terms of results and how, the world of performance and sports is, having that victory at this level means a lot in terms of me moving up. I don't plan on that being the last one. I think that's the first of many, but that being the first one, of course, talking about that, it was incredibly crucial for me.
All right, our guest at this time is Myles Rowe, driver of the number 99 Indy Force with Abel Motorsports. And Myles, I'm going to give the mic over to Michael to ask you a few things.
Myles, thank you for joining us this evening. One of my big takeaways in racing in general is diversity, and you see, yourself winning now, Bubba Wallace in NASCAR winning. What does that do for fans, that are coming into racing in general, and the diversity, going on in the series right now? Because I feel IndyCar is great with diversity.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge privilege. It was super cool to see Bubba win, and also to be a black driver in INDYNXT and on the IndyCar ladder, representing the black community. That's something very huge, because one, it's very important, especially for the younger generation. For a black kid, young black boy or black girl to be able to see someone that looks like themselves. And it's a privilege for me to be one of those people. I think the other thing is, and as you said, IndyCar's diversity is getting a lot better. And I think just from a viewing standpoint, when you're looking at a motorsport series like that, that just gives you more encouragement to want to follow it and want to understand its progression and where it's going. I think it's a little bit easier to see any institution with a lack of diversity, and for you not to catch on, for a viewer not to catch on so eagerly, because it just might seem, for a lack of a better term, just lack of flavor or or color in that sense. So IndyCar having that now is really, really cool, because motorsports as a whole is widening globally. And so to be, one of those top series with, a good diverse set of drivers, that's all the better for us. And I think that's all the better for the fans. And for us in the community, because we feel like, we're not leaving out anybody, so to speak. So it's really good to see that progression in the industry, not only from IndyCar, but from other series as well. And, for sure, I hope that keeps continuing, because it's very exciting. And you see all these new faces, and new characters and new talent, where it might have not been so easy for them to show up back in the day. But now we're seeing that, and we're seeing how it's impacting the sport, and who's now leading the sport, and that's something really exciting to look for as a viewer.
Yes, I agree totally with you. Being an IndyCar fan since 2009 and seeing the growth of diversity has been pretty amazing. And then you talked about Alonso in F1, but obviously, Lewis Hamilton also had to probably be on your radar as someone to look up to.
Yeah, no, those were my two guys. So Alonso was literally because I saw him first. I swear it was probably the first guy I saw driving a car in my life on TV. But Lewis Hamilton, him looking like me, sort of a thing, and just kind of feeling like that was like a little bit closer to, his personality being close to my culture and, close to like my family where they've been from, just being a black driver. Not only did it make it seem more reasonable for a dream like that to be possible for me, but him being the person he was also, it just showed you the kind of person, essentially, I might be saying it wrong, but the person you're supposed to be. Lewis, I always looked up to as a top-notch person, not just as a driver, but just a character in life. So for him to be in that sport that I was really admiring, and to look like me, not only wanted me to be a better driver, but be just a better human being wherever I was. So, yeah, he was huge. He was fundamental. I mean, screw race and everything like that for a second. I mean, just as a driver himself, his skill and just finesse and precision on the track was one of a kind, as we all know. So, yeah, he's been a huge influence and always will be in my life.
And then my last question: growing up in the South in Georgia, I grew up in North Carolina, so it was heavily NASCAR focused. Was that ever an option for you, or were you strictly open wheel?
So I can be very stubborn. I'm sure if I were to pursue that route a little bit, there would have been doors that would have opened. But I was adamant. So it was like I knew it was already, open wheel was already a hard path. So being in Georgia and being more surrounded by like NASCAR enthusiasts and such, I knew that I was going to have to work twice as hard, and just make sure I was figuring out my path a lot more precisely, then and there, to make sure I'd be here later, sort of a thing, because there's so little seats. So I didn't pursue anything then, stock car wise or even sports car wise, and I only focused on open wheel because I knew also that sports cars and stock cars, they can come later if you can make open wheel work, but it 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work the opposite way. So I've always been focused on open wheel.
Well, thank you for your time this evening. I know your schedule's probably pretty busy.
Yeah, thank you.
Miles, last one for me before we let you go. Me and Michael talked earlier, previewing the NTT IndyCar Series side of things this weekend at Portland. But from a driver perspective, give us a little bit of a preview or breakdown of what you guys on the INDYNXT Series are going to be challenged with this weekend at Portland International Raceway.
Yeah, so Portland, very unique track. Standard weekend, we have 2 practices. One on Friday, one Saturday morning, and then we have a qualifying session at the end on Saturday, and then we race on Sunday. Tough track, 45 lap race, because the lap's pretty short for us, 45 laps, and we don't pit. Turn 1 is very interesting for all of the races that happen at Portland. It's a right-left chicane that's very high speed. When you enter the corner. So I lost my USF 2000 championship there, and many others have lost and won championships in that corner. So in terms of points, all of us drivers will be thinking about that for the start. And naturally that goes into qualifying being very important, which it always is, any track we go to in INDYNXT and in IndyCar. So definitely turn 1, lap 1 will be interesting, both for INDYNXT and IndyCar. The race should be pretty exciting. There are some passing zones. It's a good hairpin turn in the middle of the track that's really good, and like I said, turn 1 works pretty well as well. It's a short track, just about a minute long, so the racing happens fast, but it's pretty good racing and very exciting. So I think it'll be a really good weekend for us. Abel Motorsports won last year with Jacob Abel. So we'll be looking to do that, if not the same thing, pretty close. So I'm excited.
Myles, great breakdown of the Portland International Raceway. Again, a huge thank you for carving a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to join us during race week. Definitely look forward to see what you're going to be doing this weekend for the rest of the year, and then moving forward if that opportunity does come knocking at your door. But Myles, again, a huge thank you for joining us, and good luck again this weekend and the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a huge pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that was Myles Rowe. What a fascinating individual, Michael. Great story. He has worked his way up, obviously, as he said, from every rung of the ladder, and the chatter has been getting louder and louder, especially Michael, after Myles won that race in Iowa. You may see him next year potentially. Again, we have to wait and see how everything works out, but he may potentially be in a IndyCar ride in maybe less than a year's time.
Yeah, the progression right now in the IndyCar series, like Myles said, is hard. I mean, there's not a lot of open seats available, and all these drivers are fighting for a spot, in the IndyCar series. So like he said, it's just, the grind is there, just keep going. And he wants to win. You can tell in his demeanor, he wants to win. So it'll be exciting to see him at Nashville for sure in person on the track. So I'm excited for his future for sure.
Yeah, definitely can't wait to see Myles in person on the track in Nashville there at the end of August. And you talked about somebody that has the passion to win. Well, somebody that has the passion to win in the betting field is now joining us. Mike's joining us. His IndyCar season is all of ours, slowly coming to an end with just 3 races left to go. I know there's not a lot of data in past winners, Mike, to discuss when it comes to what's going to take place this weekend out at the Portland International Raceway, with just less than a handful of former winners, a couple of those being second-time or 2-time champions of the race. So interesting to see what you're going to have in store for us this weekend.
Hey, what's up? I'm actually placing a bet as we speak. The odds just dropped. I was been checking all day before the podcast here, and refresh, and boom, odds are in our hands right here. Palou is your favorite, plus 120. O'Ward plus 550, so 5.5 to 1. Herta. And then Mr. Willpower is a bet that I just made at 8 to 1. I'm gonna play Willpower, and that might be it. Maybe Palou at plus 120, and then the rest will be top 3 odds. So there you go. Hot off the press is your Portland GP odds that I've been waiting for all day, and they literally showed up 5 seconds before we got on this podcast. So there, how about that for timing there, Derik?
You don't know that I know people in the betting world that can make that happen.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate Power being 8 to 1. I was thinking that they might get smart, and just because of his past history at this track, throw him at like 5 or 4 or something. But look, odds are is that Palou is going to run away with this. If you want to make money betting IndyCar this year, you could have just bet Palou every race, and you would have cashed 8 times. Or if you would have bet top 3, I think you would have cashed 11 times. It's hard. I've lost money this year. You're gonna unless this Power 8 to 1 comes in, it's gonna be tight to turn a profit this year. I'm hovering right about even. Did make money last week betting top 3s, so I figured Palou was gonna win, and then nailed Herta and Lundgaard top 3s. So if you can get the rest of the podium right and bet top 3s and matchups and do some grid rival picks, you can still make money gambling, or you can just scream at the TV and be mad at Palou for making it boring. I'm not sure if I'm in between liking the dominance or liking my bankroll going up. But yeah, a couple races left to build some money for football, and I think Power is driving for his job. So I'm going to take the angle of he's trying to drive for his job, or this is his last song, win one more before he goes out the door and retires and calls it quits because he's lost his edge. I think he lost his edge a little bit with his family life, which I think that's fair. Stuff that happens. So so I think I'm gonna try to cash one more willpower ticket in my betting career. I've got a lot of money to show for willpower over the years. We'll see what happens, and that's how I'm gonna play it. If you want to be smart, you probably just put all your money on Palou at plus 120. Make that your one bet, and if you do that, you win more than you lose.
I think, Mike, that's an interesting take that you have on willpower, and I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong at all. I think, and again, I could be completely wrong on this, but as much success as willpower has had at Penske, it may be one of those deals to where obviously his contract's up at the end of the year. That's well known, but willpower is going to be able to drive at Penske till he doesn't want to drive there anymore, I think. And I could be 100% wrong on this, so don't take my word as gospel. But I think willpower drives at Penske until he doesn't want to drive there anymore. But that's just one bum's opinion. But keep that in mind. You did touch on grid rivals. Now I don't know if I do grid rivals. I do more grid rivals than I do betting, and I probably should balance each of them out. But I don't have the bankroll like Michael does. If I did, I would do that. But who are some of the guys? If and I don't know if you have any experience on grid rivals and how that fantasy format works, but you pick 6 drivers and you have a salary, an X amount of salary to pick the 6 drivers. If you've taken a look at that or have any knowledge on that, who would be some of the drivers, if you play that you would be targeting this weekend?
Well, I mean, the Penske guys are cheap on there. So you're talking about the fantasy game, not the over-unders. You can't play that where you're at, I assume, right? You can't play the parlays where you pick between 2 and 6 guys and you pick their finishing positions. You're talking about the fantasy sports thing, is what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I'm in there. I'm probably in a league with you. Look, full disclosure, I don't like it. I think it's way too complicated. If I can't, if I don't have the time to deal with it or figure it out, and I do a ton of fantasy and a ton of DraftKings, a ton of that in other sports, I think it's not good for the mainstream. I mean, look, it's like a stock market, buy high, sell low, and you have to be smart about how many drivers you pick. I do think, like I said, not a fan. I think it's way too complicated. I think they need to make it just every week you put a salary out, you put it based on the driver's performance, and you get to pick your drivers, you pick a captain, and you have points based on that, just like DraftKings does NASCAR and F1. I think they're getting too cute. But if you want some strategy for that, it's buy high, sell low. You gotta pick your moments when you can get these guys. I remember, I think on my team I grabbed Palou after the bad oval set he had, and then I got him on the team signed for 3 years, and then it's basically you have to find those diamonds in the rough. Rasmussen's been great. If you got him cheap, he's slowly coming up, and then you had Schwartzman, who was top 10ing a bunch of races. So it's finding those cheap guys and putting that little captain star next to them. I think I have Newgarden on my team at really cheap. I did that right before the oval started, thinking he'd bounce back a little bit. He hasn't a little bit since Iowa. So it's all about timing and knowing who does well at what tracks. For instance, in the beginning of the year, I know I signed Kirkwood at cheap because I knew Long Beach was coming up. He was going to be good there. So I think, it does go hand in hand with your betting knowledge. If you know who you have targeted for tracks for history and you see who's doing well, then you can kind of move up in the standings. I think, my team has done okay, but I pay very little attention to it. I get the alert that says, hey, you're missing a driver, and I have to go in there and figure it out. Not a huge fan, but it's all about buy high, sell low, and trying to, in my opinion, you got to get the guys who are the cheap guys, the 10 million and under guys. If you hit on those, I looked at some of the teams that were in the top. It's the guys that have basically paid for Palou and Pato and then hit all the cheap guys.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Usually it's Saturday evening, I think, is when I'll do my research, and I'll sit down and fill out. I think I'm in 4 leagues. I think, if memory serves me correctly, but yeah, I'm right there with you. There's some things on there that I think are a little wonky, but you know what? All I can do is play it. There's not a lot more I can do about it. But Mike, good stuff as always. I know if anything else breaks in the betting world for this weekend, obviously go to your Twitter, and then I don't know if you and Tony have talked about it, but should we expect a Spaces before Sunday?
No, we haven't really done those because it's boring. Palou it's hard to just give advice to bet Palou at minus numbers, and unless we have something smart to say or we really have an angle. You just follow the Twitters, and Tony's got his unverified thing going with Land, so he's busy doing that. So we'll see. And then, look, with Fox coming on, I'm hoping that we get more gambling stuff. So, they'll push some of that. I know they do a ton of stuff with football gambling now, and I think they'll push maybe some of the old guys in Penske's boardroom to do some more IndyCar gambling stuff. So I'm hoping that all that news is good news for gambling, and we get more and more stuff. It's been nice to get more odds earlier. Like, I don't think usually when we talked we would have odds. So that's nice to see. And yeah, we'll see if we can continue expanding the gambling universe through IndyCar.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see. We're going to talk about it here after the betting segment's done about Fox acquiring a little bit of Penske Entertainment. And if what you said does come to fruition, and Fox does push the betting aspect a little bit to the curmudgeons at Penske Entertainment, you know what? Josh is not going to be able to talk enough about himself, because he has brought this to the table week in and week out, putting more gambling in IndyCar. So, Mike, if that comes to fruition, I think you just made Josh's year if that happens.
Yeah, man, I've been talking about it now for I feel like 4 or 5 years, or since I got on. That was the whole point of me getting on Twitter, was to try to build some awareness of that and get some daily fantasy and get some betting in IndyCar. So if it happens, I'll be thrilled, and it'll keep me watching for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely look forward to see what things Fox is going to be rolling out in the next couple of years. But Mike, good stuff as always. I look forward to the information you put out, and hopefully people all year have been following what you've said. Basically, bet Palou, because it's the play it close to the vest if you go with Palou. But Mike, good stuff always, and we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
All right, see you guys.
All right, good stuff there. Make sure you follow Mike on Twitter if you do want to get into the betting aspect of the NTT IndyCar Series. I would highly suggest not only Mike, but as he mentioned there as well, Tony Donahue. I know he's good on that side, not only with IndyCar but other professional sports as well. So definitely, I would highly suggest go seeking them out. One aspect of betting that I know a lot of bettors pay close attention to, not only practices, but what the weather conditions are going to look like. And none other than the official weatherman of the Push to Pass podcast joins us now. And I know I have his weather report, and I'll bring it up here momentarily. But weatherman, hopefully everything is going good over there in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, everything's going pretty well. And as far as this weekend goes, it looks pretty good. As also, everything's kind of setting up for a hot race day, essentially, but no major weather impacts throughout the 3 days. So, kind of big picture, tomorrow is kind of what you'd expect, I think, for weather in the Pac Northwest. Showery, cloudy, just a generally cool day. And then that activity is generally clearing out as we go into Thursday. So then we'll see clouds decreasing and temps get progressively warmer as we go through each day all the way up to race day. So for high temps, you're looking Friday in the low 80s. And then we step up into the upper 80s by the time we get into Saturday. And then on Sunday, we could be looking low to mid 90s, which is a little bit unusual for Portland this time of year. It's about 10 degrees warmer than they normally see, which they're usually about low 80s, 83-ish for a seasonal average this time of year. So I tweeted this out earlier today, as I was kind of going through the previous events, the weather for those races. If this trend holds and temperatures do wind up in the 90s, it'll be the warmest race day we've seen since the current iteration of this event, when we started back up in 2018. And you really have to dip all the way back into the Champ Car days to find an example of similar conditions where it was this warm. So I will say that there's if there's a silver lining to these temps. It's hot, yes, but it's not going to be excessively humid. So, 90 degrees this weekend in Portland is going to feel different than, say, 90 degrees in Iowa in the middle of the growing season. So not as much moisture with the heat. And so we're not really dealing with an elevated heat index or a much higher feels like temperature. So that's really it for the forecast this weekend. Bottom line, looking at rain on Wednesday, clearing up Thursday, and then we get sunny and hot going into the weekend.
And I know this is probably going to be hard to answer, but do you anticipate any changes in that forecast that you sent out earlier today between now and race weekend?
So everything seems to be tracking pretty good. The system coming through Wednesday, Thursday's on track, and it should be clearing out right on schedule. So I think if we do see any changes or adjustments, it'll be relatively minor. And what I'm really curious to see is how high we can get those temps on Sunday. Right now, I think in my forecast, I got 93. We'll see if that maybe tweaks up a little bit or it sticks around there. But that's about the only significant change I would expect to see as we move forward.
All right, we'll be crossing our fingers for a great race weekend. But if something does happen to change in between now and then, Weatherman, as always, where can the people find your up-to-date forecasts at?
So all my forecast updates and whatever various weather-related products I post are on X, formerly Twitter. And then everything also gets cross-posted to Instagram Threads and Blue Sky. So you can search IndyCar Weatherman on any of those platforms, and you should have no issues finding me.
All right, good stuff as always. Thank you for what you've done throughout the year. Just 2 more times, if you can believe it or not, in the 2025 season. But Weatherman, again, huge thank you, and we will talk in a couple weeks.
Yep, sounds good, guys. You have a great night.
All right, good stuff. Make sure if you are not following the Weatherman on social media platforms, make sure you do that for any up-to-date changes to the weather in between now and then. All right, before we get to our news and notes and we get on out of here for this Tuesday night, we do have to thank a few sponsors that makes it possible here on the Push to Pass podcast. First and foremost, Always Ready 1776. For all of your patriotic apparel, headwear, and more, go check out Always Ready 1776, and you can find them on the web at alwaysready1776.com. And if you do choose to purchase something from there, make sure you use that promo code that you see down right there in the middle of the screen, Push to Pass, for 10% off of your order at Always Ready 1776. Also, a huge thank you to Get 'em Associates for all your home design and remodeling needs. Remember, it's Get 'em Associates, and you can find them on the web as well at getem.com. And as always, if you do choose to use their services, make sure you use that promo code you see right there, Push to Pass, for $250 off any design service over at Get 'em Associates. And then the newest sponsor of the Push to Pass podcast is Diane's Landscaping. Tree service, fertilization, topsoil grass cutting, garden cleanups, hedge trimming, garden weeding, controlling land irrigation, and so much more. It's Diane's Landscaping, and you can give them a call for a quote today at 419-770-2332, and that is Diane's Landscaping. So a huge thank you to all 3 of those that make it possible for us to bring you week in and week out the Push to Pass podcast. All right, Michael, we have one more item left to cover this evening, and we've kind of talked about it, we've kind of flirted about it, and we'll bring it up now. It is the big announcement that came to fruition last week, and it is that Fox has acquired 1/3 of Penske Entertainment. And this was announced early last week, right before the calendar turned to August, that Fox Corp has acquired 1/3 of Penske Entertainment, owner of auto racing's IndyCar series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Fox said on Thursday. The terms of the deal at the time were not disclosed, but people familiar with the transaction valued Fox's investment in acquiring 1/3 of Penske Entertainment between $125 and $135 million. Now, Penske Entertainment, along with Penske Transportation Service, is a unit of Roger Penske and the behemoth that is Penske Corporation. As part of the agreement, Fox's media rights deal for the IndyCar races has been extended for several years, the company said. Fox started carrying an IndyCar earlier this year. Ratings have grown significantly from previous years when Comcast's company NBC aired the sports. So, Michael, kind of curious to get your reaction and thought when this news broke last week about Fox acquiring 1/3 of Penske Entertainment.
Yeah, I know it's just for the IndyCar series and IMS and that situation. But yeah, it's interesting. We kind of talked about the playoff system and things like that Fox may or may not want to do. It was pretty shocking to me, honestly. And I did hear that the TV deal I just read earlier where that is through 2030 now. So IndyCar will live on Fox until at least 2030, so be another 5 full seasons on Fox. Now, my big question is are we going to start going down the rabbit hole of, well, here this race is going to be on FS1 or FS2, or we may have to push you to, Fox Business Channel or whatever. So hopefully we don't get into any of those situations. And with Fox paying, or buying into the series, they probably are going to be less reluctant to do that, but we'll see what happens with that. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what more Fox can do, because I know we had our group chat going and we were talking about advertisement and promotional things, but I feel Fox has done a really good job this year. They're airing they had commercials during the Speedway Classic baseball game this week. There was commercials. I go to the gas station to get gas at Speedway, and there's, all sorts of the IndyCar commercials with, Joseph Newgarden and Alex Palou. So, you see those, and for me, I'm like, oh, okay, I know about them, but who else is at the gas station that doesn't know and may tune in now? So Fox, I feel, has done a really good job, but let's see what they can do moving forward now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And to touch on the job that Fox has done in year one, you talked about the little snippet commercials that you see at the gas station at Speedway. I know Shell, you do see those there as well. So you got to give it to Fox. You got to give them their flowers, as we do for the promoting that they have done in year one. And obviously with what was the news that came down last week, you got to believe that Fox is going to ramp up that promoting when going into 2026. All right, Michael, unless there is something else or anything else that you want to touch on this evening, I think that about does it for another episode. But is there anything that you wanted to touch on before we get on out of here?
Yeah, there's one thing that I would like to kind of touch on, and it's dropped in the last couple of hours on Twitter, and I'm not sure if you've seen it yet. I'm not trying to get political or anything like that, but the United States Department of Homeland Security put out an image of a supposed Indy car that has ice on it, and it's getting a lot of backlash on X. And like I said, I didn't want to get political or anything, but yeah, that's kind of going through the Twitter world, and I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't get too much backlash on the IndyCar series itself, because I know a lot of people are asking, Doug Bowles about it, and yeah, there you go. They're asking, you shouldn't pull them up, but that is the IndyCar. That is a spoof account that does a lot of negative stuff that's pretty horrible. So, but that was the car that I was talking about, and there's a lot of backlash on that and things like that. So we gotta, hopefully, we don't want that, because we don't want the negative side of things. We want to grow the sport. We don't want the negative light on that. And, someone just scrolling and seeing that will be like, well, I'm not watching that because, they're allowing that kind of sponsor. And hopefully we can, distance ourselves from that. But I know people have asked, IMS and Doug Bowles and IndyCar to weigh in on that. So we'll see if they put out any sort of release or statement about that.
Yeah, that is the first time that I've seen that, and I can tell you unequivocally, as much as all three of us, when Josh is here as well, that covered IndyCar, Arrow McLaren, Pato O'Ward have never had a sponsor like that. I think the only time, memory serves me correctly, that Pato O'Ward had a different color scheme was a couple years ago at the Indianapolis 500, or maybe this year when the car was white. Other than that, it is that papaya orange with the black arrow over it. So that is definitely clickbait, and probably not a conversation that you want to be a part of, because that is totally 100% false. So with that being said, that does it for another episode of the Push to Pass podcast. Huge thank you to Myles Rowe for coming on from the 99 driver of the 99 Force Indy by Abel Motorsports. Huge thank you for him for sharing a little bit of time with us. Also, a huge thank you to Mike for our betting segment. He has done that the last few years. Can't thank him enough for that. Also, the weather segment that we started this year, definitely love that the official weatherman is able to share a little bit of knowledge for us for the upcoming race weekend. And also, huge thank you to everybody that watched or listened on X, YouTube, and Facebook this evening. Remember, if you did miss any part of the show, you can go back on YouTube and check it out in the video form. And then also, too, as I announced last week or the week before, you can now go on your normal podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and just search for Push to Pass podcast, and you can find us there as well. So that has been a huge bonus for us here at the show. And last but certainly not least, huge thank you to Michael for everything that he does week in and week out. And I know Josh wasn't here this evening due to a prior engagement, but a huge thank you to him, everything that he does on a week in and week out basis as well. All right, we'll be back in 1 week's time to discuss and analyze what we watched this coming weekend at the Portland International Raceway for the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland. So until then, we will be back in 1 week's time. So for myself, Josh, Michael, and everyone else that makes up the Push to Pass podcast, so long, everybody.
IndyCar Series is back on track.
Rosenquist right now in the middle of an Arrow McLaren sandwich because it's Pato O'Ward just behind him. But Alexander Rossi now starting to draw away from Felix.
They'll take a full turn out of that front wing, and Alex Palou is down and away 7.6 seconds. Let's see how he blends in with Will Power.
Great execute, buddy. Nice job.
Listen to the NTT IndyCar Series at Portland International Raceway, live this Sunday.